We don't subscribe to the old school way, nor the new school way, only the optimal way. The 80-20 Baseball Experience with Coach Bo.
Welcome, everybody. This is Coach Bo with 80-20 Baseball. Welcome. This is going to be episode number 21. Moving forward, I'm going to number the episodes. I know this is common with podcasts, but I'm going to start. The first 20 had certain specific topics. I didn't want to get into the numbering system. That I didn't want you to think that number 1 was more important than number 2, or number 5 was less important than number 7. I just did those podcasts. I got them out. I was working on some things. And what I'd like to do now is, as I move forward here with you guys, is number the podcast so you can follow along with, where you are and which episodes you've listened to and which ones you haven't listened to. These episodes are going to have 3 parts moving forward. And I'm really excited about this format. I'm always looking to optimize. I'm always looking to get better. Hopefully you guys are. I think because you're listening to this, it says you are. It shows me you are. I'm excited to have you here. And because of that, I want to continue to make this show better. And I think this way, in this format moving forward, as I'm going to describe here, I think is a great start. I think you guys are going to enjoy it because I'm a big podcast fan myself. I listen to a lot of different podcasts, and I have some plans for some longer form podcasts, interview style podcasts. Now, these podcasts that I've been doing are not interview style because I'm trying to get out a lot of good content. I'm trying to curate and then also create a lot of great content for you. And sometimes with interviews, there's a plus and a minus to that. And sometimes the minus is that it kind of drags on a little longer. It gets kind of caught in the weeds a little bit. And I like interview podcasts. I feel like sometimes we just need to get right into it. So with that said, part 1 of these podcast episodes moving forward is going to either have a discussion about a conventional problem, a common issue that I'm seeing, a general problem within the coaching community or within the baseball community that I feel could be ironed out, improved, and then greatly help all of you coaches and players out there. And then part 1 is I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna have some variability here. So part 1 is either gonna be discussing an issue that I'm seeing, kind of an underlying issue or a glaring problem within the coaching community or within the baseball player development community, or it's going to be a positive recommendation period. I'm gonna spend this first 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes of each podcast, like I said, either going over the issue or kind of an underlying problem that I think we can learn from and grow from. And we got to be careful, like insofar as like a red flag, or I'm going to use the first 8 to 10 minutes to share with you a positive recommendation, a resource, a video, a book, another podcast, a coach that I think you should follow. There's a whole bunch of types of resources that we can all learn from. So it's going to have discussion about an underlying issue, a red flag within the baseball community that we can all learn from, or a positive recommendation that you can take and use and learn from. So kind of I'm going to curate a bunch of great resources and share and vet. I'm going to vet them and then I'm going to share them with you. Only going to try to give you those golden nuggets of recommendations. All right, the second part of the podcast is going to be, and again, this is going to be a 30-minute total podcast, 25 to 30 minutes. The second part, the second 8 to 10 minutes, will be a specific coaching strategy or tip. A specific coaching strategy or tip that you can take right out to the game, right out to practice, and then also out to the game, but mostly at practice because, obviously during the games, we're not going to be doing as much coaching as you are during practice. So at least you probably shouldn't be doing as much coaching during the games, letting players play a little bit more. With that said, we're going to spend the second part of this discussing a specific coaching strategy or tip that you can use right away to help you and your players. The third part, the third 8 to 10 minutes, we're going to discuss a position-specific tip or strategy. And today we're going to talk about one part of how to improve the changeup, a specific change or adjustment that can improve the changeup for all pitchers, or at least I should say most all pitchers. The second part of today, like I discussed just a minute ago, is going to be a specific coaching strategy or tip. We're going to talk about transitional periods during practice. And we're going back to the first part here, and we're going to get this show started. Today, we're going to talk about a conventional or kind of a common underlying issue that I see, not just in baseball, but throughout the world. And we're going to get into some of those real world examples here. I like to kind of look at other examples outside of baseball to give us a better idea of what's going on inside of baseball. And a lot of you listening are baseball people. You're into baseball. You've been around it your whole life. You're into the game. Some of you, though, are not baseball, like you're not like diehard, you haven't been around it your whole life, and that's fine. The whole idea of this podcast is to be for the advanced coach, but just as much for the coach that is starting out. With that said, an underlying issue that I see in all areas of life, but I'm going to relate it specifically here to baseball, is that you hear that common phrase, good is the enemy of great. So we hear that phrase, many of you have probably heard this phrase, good is the enemy of great. Well, I'd like to adjust that a little bit, and I'd like to say it like this. Good is the enemy of optimal. Good is the enemy of optimal. And the word optimal, I think, is very underused and probably undervalued greatly. I really am a big, huge, massive fan of the word optimal and good. And you could even say great is just going to be great. Now, I wouldn't say great is the enemy of optimal, but good is definitely the enemy of great. Good is definitely the enemy of optimal. And I'll discuss exactly what we're talking about here. So why stop at good? I think it's important that we don't stop at good. We should always be looking to optimize. This is going to vary as each team and each player is different and has differences. Not massive differences, but unique individual differences. So looking for the optimal way for one player in a lot of different ways in different areas is going to be different than other players. Not with everything. Like the laws of physics are the laws of physics. The rules of the game are the rules of the game. Those don't change for the player. The baseball doesn't change for the player. 90 feet, 60 feet, the bases, the throws, those angles, those are the same for every player. But there are, nuances and individuality to each coaching or teaching point or player development point in terms of optimizing. Good can lure us into complacency, and that's not what we want to be, right? See, when people are not good, they either quit, like people that are not doing very well or people that are really struggling, they either quit or they go full bore towards getting better. But players and coaches that have success or have had some success, they can lose that hunger, or they can also become risk adverse. So they might lose that hunger because they've had some success, they've tasted success, maybe they think they've made it because they're doing good, or they're good and they'd rather not risk being good. They're happy with being good and they'd rather not, they're thinking more about what they might lose rather than optimizing and becoming great and optimal. So they're risk adverse. So there's two things that I think that happen. They lose a hunger or they're risk adverse. You look at this like, for example, like you see here the words trust fund baby. It's like, they're going to lose some hunger. They're a little more complacent, right? They have stuff to fall back on. They're already well off. So there's not a lot of hunger. Okay. But then there's a lot of the stories you hear about, especially in the business world of people that come from nothing, and there's that hunger they really have. Now their life is just very, very poor, and so they just go full bore towards getting better and success. So that's the same thing I think that happens in sports. So I think it's important that we understand this. If you're good, I think you should look to make slight adjustments in most cases, and in some cases, wholesale changes. The first thing you should do when you're doing good, if you're a coach and your team's winning consistently, you should still always be looking to optimize parts of your coaching game. Players, if you're doing well, if you're doing good, you should still look to make slight adjustments here, there, slight improvement. Maybe trade something out for something new that might be a better way of doing it, or just look to improve what you're already doing. Look to optimize it, make it more efficient. You can go on and on about what that looks like. I think we all understand like what a better drill, a better technique would look like, but you should always be looking to get a little bit better if you're already good. Now, if you're terrible, then you should be looking to make some wholesale changes. But we're talking about good being the enemy of optimal here. So this complacency with being good is widely apparent at all levels and everywhere in life, but all levels of baseball. In fact, a glaring example of this, and this is probably the most glaring example that I've seen over the years, is in professional baseball. And that is the kind of the message is that you just leave the player alone if he's gotten this far. Like if he's gotten to the major leagues. I hear this still. I listen to interviews of professional coaches, and I don't go I shouldn't say one. I don't go more than a few interviews without hearing a coach say, well, we just kind of leave, he knows what he knows. He's a pro. He's gotten this far. We kind of leave him alone. He's figured it. He's gotten this far. We don't want to, it's kind of like if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that is the enemy of optimal. And in professional baseball, baseball, there's kind of been like this, just don't mess them up. Like as a coach in professional baseball, you could get fired for getting a player hurt or messing them up, but you can't really get it fired, as fast as if you just kind of, don't improve him, because it's a lot easier to assess somebody, player getting injured or a player that just goes in the tank in terms of success. And so for years in professional baseball, it's been, just happy with the player being good and, best case scenario, cross your fingers and hope the player himself optimizes, his game. And so it's kind of like, just don't mess with it. Let it be, they're there, they've got, and I just don't agree with this. I think that this is absolutely not the way to handle it. Obviously, if they've made the major leagues, you're going to be a little bit more hesitant to make adjustments. You're going to be a little more cautious. You're going to sleep on it a little longer, but there's no reason to sit there and just a default setting of, we're not going to touch him. We're going to let him be. Well, if he figures it out, then he figures it out. If he can optimize himself, then he'll do it. To me, that's flat out just a terrible default mentality, a default setting when it comes to and like an MO for professional teams. Now, that's the professional level, and I've seen this, all the way down at every level. And speaking of outside of baseball, look at like a restaurant. Say a restaurant is a 4-star Yelp. So they have a 4-star review, average review on Yelp. And if you're not sure what Yelp is, you got to download that app. I love it. That's just one of those go-to apps that I think can save you a lot of bad experiences. But nonetheless, it would be a terrible idea, I think, for a 4-star reviewed restaurant to be complacent and stuck at 4. Why not go for that 4.5? Why not go for the 4.5? Some of you guys are like, 4.5, that's not 5. 5 on Yelp obviously is the top mark. Well, we all know that getting a 5 on Yelp is almost impossible, because you just have contrarians. You have people that just have too much time in their hands, or just, hate life, and they're gonna find a reason to give it a 1 or a 2 or a 3, because that's just who they are. But anyways, another one is go watch the movie The Founder. The Founder is a movie with Michael Keaton, and he plays Ray Kroc, and it's about the McDonald brothers and the McDonald's franchise from the start. Many of you have probably already seen it. Go back and watch the scene if you've already seen it. And if you haven't, look for the scene. I want to say it's about 30 minutes in, and watch the scene where the McDonald brothers are breaking down the kitchen setup while trying to shave off just seconds, fractions of minutes off. They're just trying to shave seconds off of the prep time for their hamburgers, for their food. And now they were already light years ahead of other restaurants with this process, with their order prep process. But they wanted the process to be optimal. It's pretty interesting how they talk about improving something that was already obviously great, in a sense where, it wasn't necessarily that the burgers were the best in the world and the fries were the best in the world, but their process and how they could serve a lot of people and really, people value their time so they could get good food, fresh food much faster. Well, they took something that was already light years ahead of other restaurants, and they were looking to optimize it. So go watch that. They talk about the order in which, where things are situated in the kitchen exactly, and how they can shave off seconds off of an order time. So that's a great example of how you can, of somebody of a well-known business or entity that's looking to improve, even though they're already great. Ask GM, ask Ford how it feels to be good. Well, they were good, and I've owned Chevys and I've owned Fords. Ask them how it feels to stay at good, while Toyota went for optimal and just blew by them. I can't tell you, it seems like every year I see more and more, like, GM and Ford are well known for their trucks, right? They got the F-150s, the Silverados. But then you look out there and you go, man, I'm seeing a lot more Toyota trucks every single year, and they're getting better and better. And it's not that Ford and GM don't make good trucks. They do. It's just they've kind of been stagnant at good. They haven't gone for optimal. And I'm not saying Toyota makes optimal trucks, but I think they've optimized a lot of their process, their factory processes, and you can go read about all that stuff. It's pretty fascinating. So, I think they got some, that's an example of how car industry, how they've got, complacent with good. Like, they were good, and it's good, and people like good, but it's like, why not try to get better? Why not go for optimal? Look at Tiger Woods' swing. I remember hearing a story. I don't know exactly if this is like 100% true, because I like golf. I've golfed a lot, not so much anymore, but I've golfed a lot in my life. I really enjoy being out on the golf course. And I remember Tiger Woods years and years ago, like he like revamped his swing, and he was like number 1 in the world, and he revamped his swing. I'm sure there's golfers out there that are listening to this. This is a story as I read it. These are pretty good sources I read it from, but again, I don't follow Tiger. I've never heard it from Tiger Woods' mouth that he just went and adjusted his swing, even though was already good. He wanted to be great. So it's like, now if that's true, you're talking about one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time. And then he revamped his swing. So I'm trying to give examples outside of baseball. I think that's interesting stuff. I hope you guys find it interesting and kind of give you a little more perspective. Now we're going to dive right into the kind of more specific into the baseball. A coach having a good drill, but not an optimal drill, should either look for a better version of their good drill, how they can make it more efficient, more game-like, a little more challenging, add some competition, more fun, a little safer. You can see there's a lot of ways to improve and optimize. So it may only be in one or two areas. It may be a very challenging drill. I don't want to make it more challenging, or it may be not very challenging. You want to make it more challenging, or maybe a lot of fun already. So you can't really make it more fun, but maybe you can make it more game-like. So if a coach has a good drill but not an optimal drill, either they should try to get a better version or a replacement for that drill. Just swap it out with another one that maybe they saw somebody else doing. Don't get too attached to your drills. Put the ego aside. Don't get attached to that stuff. If you see another coach do a drill that trains the same specific area as the drill you have, but their drill's better, or a better version of it in whatever way overall, or in various ways that you think are important, then just swap it out. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you can have a good drill, but maybe there's an optimal drill, or maybe you have a good drill, you can optimize that drill. You're always looking to improve. I've had some good drills over the years. I think a lot of good drills as a coach. And if you came out to my practice 2 years after having last seen that drill being conducted, it would be the same bones. It would have the same kind of framework, but there would be things within it that it's faster, it's safer, it's more efficient, it's more game-like, it's more fun, it's more competition. Everything is looking to get better. I'm looking to get better at all that. Moving forward with examples in baseball, a pitcher adding and optimizing the changeup to an already great fastball and slider. So there's a lot of pitchers in baseball that have great fastballs and great breaking balls, but looking to optimize that changeup. Because you look at the great pitchers like a Strasburg, the Scherzers, I think Garrett Cole's a great candidate for a changeup. These guys are these guys are great pitchers, but could they optimize a little bit more? And you see like Scherzer is, his changeup and his slider, and he's, a little bit of a cutter and his fastball, and he's looking to optimize. He's not complacent. He's looking to get better. So those are big, well-known examples. And again, I think that one of them that I've done, I did a podcast. Go back and listen to the Garrett Cole podcast. I think I titled it The $324 Million Pitcher. And I said this back 4 or 5 months ago, right when he signed that big deal. I said, you know what? I think his changeup, I think he could start throwing that changeup more and drop his ERA from what it was. It was a 2.5. It was stellar, unreal. He had a great year. He was great, but I even saw him throwing some changeups before this. So, the whole virus thing came in, and the spring training and the season got postponed or maybe canceled, but it got stopped, and he was throwing that changeup more and more, I think, in the videos I saw. And so, hey, he's looking to optimize his game. He's not just like, man, I got a great fastball, a really good kind of slurve. He throws a hard slurve slider. Hey, I'm really great with those pitches. I dominated with those pitches. I got $324 million contract. He's like, well, maybe I start throwing his changeup more. Not that he didn't have it. He did throw it. He just threw it. He threw it very minimally last year and in years past. But I think that's something like looking to optimize. Moving forward, an infielder that's content with not making any errors is good. Hey, he didn't make any errors. But maybe his range is terrible, right? Maybe his range is not that great. So yeah, he's good. He doesn't make any errors on the balls to him. Cool. Let's keep that moving. Let's keep that going. Let's not mess with that. But let's look to improve the range also. Let's look to optimize. How do you optimize the range for your given set of athleticism and your genetics? Let's maybe look not just to, a great fielding percentage, but also to improve our range rating, all right? And that's why, you look at these statistics, like all the statistics, but defense specifically, it's like, hey, they just kind of threw out the whole like fielding percentage out the door years ago, and they said it doesn't matter if you field every ball that's hit right to you, you miss 2 or 3 balls to your left or right that another guy in the league or other players, other shortstops were getting, because those are hits that were hit, so you didn't make an error on him, but you let him, you didn't get to him, and Francisco Lindor's getting to him, and so he might have made 15 more errors than you during the season, but he also got to 70 more baseballs and saved 70 more hits. Well, at the end of the day, the infielder content with not making errors, but is complacent with having a poor range. That's a specific example. We could go on and on and on with all these examples of where players and coaches can look to improve, to optimize, not get stuck with good. I can always tell when a coach is going for optimal because that coach wins more overall as they get further into their careers. Taking out those rare circumstances where, there's some variables that just kind of like totally go in their favor, which is very, very, very rare. The typical coach, I can tell you, the coaches that do not get stuck with good are coaches that, one, they had a lot of success, but they kept winning more and more and more as their careers furthered, as they got further into their careers. So that's how I can tell a coach is not just stuck at good. That coach is looking to be optimal. Now, again, perfection is not attainable, right? It's just not attainable. But why not strive for perfection? Good is the enemy of great, and good is the enemy of optimal. Next section here, part 2 of this, specific coaching strategy or tip. Coaches, time all transitions with a stopwatch on your phone, on your watch. Time all transitions. You want to have a fast-paced practice. You got to continue that tone during transitions. You want to save yourself a lot of time during the season. Well, I should say save. You want to take a lot of time away from your practice, your improvement, your reps, your training. Well, I'll tell you what, let your players just kind of lollygag through their transitions. This transition may be like a water break. It may be a transition between drills. It may be a transition between picking up baseballs or moving from station to station. All these transitions should be monitored. They should all be timed. Set the tone early. And now, here's a couple suggestions on how to do this. First, before I give you the suggestions, like I just did a quick breakdown, like say like a 16-week season, like 4 months. I just took kind of a generic 4-month season, 3.5 practices per week. Now this would be for high school and older, but you could even do like 2 practices a week. And a lot of teams practice 3 times a week. I just took like say a typical high school, 16 week, 4-month season, even though I know there's off-season training, off-season practices and winter practices and things like that. I just took the 4 months, 3.5 practices per week. Sometimes you have scrimmages, you have games, you have other things going on. I just said 3.5 practices a week. I know you can't have half practice, but stay with me. Like 1 week you might have 4, 1 week might have 3, something like that. 5 hours are going to be saved in a season. 5 hours, and likely much more than that. 5 hours a season can be saved. You're going to add 5 hours of training time each season. It's like if you're a high school coach, that's 20 hours of extra training time per, set of players that comes through for 4 years. Or college, that's 20 extra hours of training. And that's a very conservative number. But trust me, there is a lot of time to be had that we can put towards training, improving, or rest and recovery. Anything besides just kind of lollygagging through kind of a stale transition, a slow snail-like transition. It also is tough for players to be allowed to have slow transitions in practice and then get back to that vibe of fast-paced, energy, hustle, up-tempo. And I'm not against giving players a break. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying give them a break, but then transition it. Have players transition from maybe one station to another, but time it. Everything should be timed. All right, now for a couple suggestions to help you implement this, you coaches. Set the initial transition time. So maybe you have a transition to pick up baseballs and you think it's going to take them 45 seconds to pick up all the baseballs. Set the initial transition time higher, and then I recommend it. This isn't that, you can do it both ways. You can start it lower and, then adjust up. I like setting the timer a little higher earlier on and then reducing it as you see fit. So, for example, let's say you got a transition between stations. Say you got a 3-station drill going on and you're switching stations and players got to switch to get their glove or get their bat or things like that. And you kind of look at it like, okay, it should take 90 seconds for the transition to take place. Then I would set the time at maybe 2 minutes or 1 minute and 45 seconds. You'll see if they get it done, 10 seconds earlier than you told them, great. Then next time you just reduce the time. So instead of 90 seconds, maybe you say 80 seconds, or instead of 1 minute and 45, you drop it down to 1.5 minutes. You drop it down to 90 seconds. You see what I mean? So, you're going to find that optimal time that works for your team, your level, and your facility, your field, and kind of your practice setup. But I would set the initial time a little higher. But some of you guys are thinking like, well, 90 seconds right now. You're like, well, 90 seconds is a lot faster than some transitions. Some transitions, if I went out and timed your team, a lot of teams that I go out and watch and I look for and I consult with and I watch and I observe and I just kind of assess how they're moving along with their practices, they'll take 3, 4, 5 minutes, sometimes between transitions. 3 minutes is not, 2.5 minutes, even 2 minutes. It's like, well, can we shave off 30 seconds? Can we shave off 45 seconds? Can the players start jogging fast? And a lot of you guys already do this, but you're going to start, if you start setting these timers, players are going to find ways to be more efficient with their transitions. You don't even have to give them all like the strategies like, hey, have your glove here, have your back. They're going to figure it out. You set the time and let them figure out how to get it done fast. And now you're going to save yourself a lot of practice time, and I should say open up a lot of practice time. The best consequence for this is the bear crawl. The bear crawl is the best consequence for this. All right, so go check it out on YouTube. Google bear crawl, football bear crawl, baseball, sports, athletic bear crawl. I love the bear crawl. I got an article about the bear crawl. I've talked about the bear crawl a lot, so I'm a big fan of the bear crawl. It's easy to learn, it's not easy to do in terms of like it's really exhausting, but it's not dangerous. It's easy to just kind of learn. It doesn't take any skill to do it. You can be done right there on the field. It definitely exhausts the players pretty quick. It doesn't put them in like their health in jeopardy. It just really kind of gets them like not liking it. They do not like to do bear crawls. Players do not like bear crawls, and so that's a great fallback when they do not hit that time. So, for example, you can say, all right, guys, you got 45 seconds to get all the baseballs picked up in the bucket, and the bucket needs to be right here. Be very specific to what you need. I need all 3 buckets picked up. I need all 3 buckets here. I need 1 bucket at first, 1 bucket at second, 1 at third, however you want to set up. You got 45 seconds to get it done. I'll tell you what, talk about built-in conditioning, because those kids are going to be moving, grabbing, picking up, boom, boom. You're not going to have that basketball shooting contest. I'm not saying you shouldn't have fun at practice. Every time you're picking up balls and it turns into a free throw contest or 3-point contest because players are shooting, that's not what you want, right? You don't want that. Now, if you want to do that after practice, have some fun with a game, do that. But if you do that every time you're picking up balls, you're just wasting a lot of time. So tell them, you got 45 seconds. I need this, and I need X, Y, and Z. We need, this is how it needs to be set up, or we need to reset back up, 45 seconds. And if you don't get it done, you're going to do a 100-foot bear crawl. If they don't get it done, you got a 100-foot bear crawl. And don't go a minute. If you tell them if you say 45 seconds, it's not 47 seconds, it's not 50 seconds. 45 seconds is 45 seconds. If they don't get it done, they bear crawl. Trust me, they'll figure it out quick, and they'll figure out ways to work together as a team to do those transitions. Another one is water breaks. Give them a water break. Give them a chance at, a little bit of a rest. 3 minutes, right? 4 minutes. Whatever you think fits, but I think I would go less than you think. And if you time it, they're not going to be, shooting the breeze and messing around with their water bottles and trying to flip them up in the air and try to have them land on their, pointing straight up and all this. They're going to go over, they're going to take a couple deep breaths, they're going to get some water, get their equipment kind of situated, get some more water, boom, back to it, set the timer. It also keeps the coach moving. It keeps the coach from getting into a long conversation with other coaches. I know we all love talking. I could talk to other coaches for days, but when you're out there, you want to make the most of your practice time. If you want to talk after practice, or if you want to get together for a beer or a coffee in the morning and talk shop, that's the time to do it, not out there during practice. Keep the practice moving. So there's some specific strategies there. You can email me, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com, and I'll give you other strategies. If you have a specific question about how to go and get the transition times faster, send me an email. I'm glad to help you out and give you some pointers on that. Moving to part 3 now. Position-specific tip. Pitchers, pitching coaches, or coaches that are coaching pitchers, have your pitcher match his changeup spin to his fastball spin. Have them match the changeup spin to the fastball spin. I got a video on my website, 8020baseball.com. Pretty much break down the whole part of the changeup, why it's not as successful for younger pitchers, why it's not used as much for older pitchers, in my opinion, and some strategies to get better at the feel of it, and some specific strategies that can be used in the game to fool hitters more. That being said, match the changeup spin to the fastball spin. There are a few caveats. There's a caveat to this. If you're a pitcher that has a split-fingered fastball as your changeup, it's a little more rare, right? Especially the lower levels. Or if you have like a split kind of 3-finger changeup, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can probably just look that up on YouTube, a split 3-finger changeup. Those pitchers are going to have a little harder time mimicking and replicating their fastball spin and their change of spin, kind of matching the two. But the pitcher's throwing a 4-seam fastball predominantly. If he's only throwing 4-seam fastballs, then I highly recommend he throw a 4-seam changeup, a 4-seam spin changeup. Now, I'm not a big fan of the complete circle change. I like an open circle, but it should match. So if you're, a lot of times over the years, and I've worked with thousands and thousands of pitchers over the years, and I can't tell you how many times that, I would have a pitcher throw a 4-seam fastball, and his changeup would be like a 2-seam circle changeup. 2-seam fastballs, 2-seam changeups, 2 seams spinning. Hopefully you know what a 2-seam and the difference between a 2-seam and a 4-seam. Let me put it this way. Most of you do, but if you don't, just know this. They do not spin the same. A 4-seam fastball looks different than a 2-seam fastball. And to good hitters, they look very different. Now, the problem is if you're throwing a lot of 4-seam fastballs and then you throw a 2-seam changeup, the hitter's going to see that as something different. And the first kind of initial thing for kind of default reaction for hitters to a spin that doesn't match that of the pitcher's fastball is that it's not a fastball and that it's going to be then slower, right? They're not sure exactly. It's not spinning like a breaking ball, so it's not necessarily they're not looking for it to drop and break or cut left, cut right, but what they're looking for is something that's a little slower. So they're kind of, a lot of good hitters, their default setting is to then kind of stay pushing their hands a little bit from coming forward, kind of pushing back a little and just wait. And that's not what you want when you're throwing a changeup. You want hitters to see and think and believe 100% that's a fastball coming. You want them hook, line, and sinker. You want them going for that fastball. You want them swinging like it's a fastball. You want them going for that changeup with all their swing speed and all their might, right? You want the fastball to spin the same way. So if your pitcher is a predominantly 2-seam fastball pitcher, then throw a 2-seam changeup. If possible, again, you have some pitchers that just really have a great changeup that's kind of a 3-finger ball that I've seen some pitchers throw really well over the years. Not very many, but a few. And some pitchers throw an excellent split finger. Look at Schilling and Clemens and some of these old, major league guys, Tanaka, these guys that throw really good splits. Well, then it's a little harder for them because a split finger does have a real funky spin to it. And it's, trying to match the two isn't always a great idea. But most pitchers will throw kind of a traditional kind of circle. I like the open circle where the thumb's underneath a little bit and match that changeup spin to the fastball spin. Now, question, Coach Bo, what if my pitcher throws both a 4-seam and a 2-seam? And sure, this is really common. I think the best way to handle this is to have the pitcher just simply throw whatever the last fastball was. The last fastball they threw was a 4-seam, then match the changeup to that. If the last fastball they threw was a 2-seam, say you're trying to run it in on a righty or sink it away from a lefty. I'm saying if this is a right-handed pitcher, you're trying to run it into a righty, sink it away from a lefty, then the subsequent changeup, that changeup should be a 2-seam. It's not that difficult to really implement this. It's kind of a quick fix that I think can really, over the course of a season and a career can really add up to more swing and misses, more hitters going after the changeup as though it looks like a fastball. So match the changeup spin to the fastball spin. And the reason I bring this up is because more often than not, these do not match. And I listen to hitters, and I've studied that, I've worked with thousands of pitchers, and I've studied hitters, and I've listened to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hitters talk about this, and I know that's a big deal to them when things just don't spin the same. When the ball's not spinning and looking the same, that's a big red flag. We do not want to give the hitters a red flag. We don't want to give them anything. We just want them to think it's a fastball coming. So match the changeup spin to the fastball spin. 4-seam fastball should be a 4-seam spin changeup, a 4-seam circle change, or a 4-seam or 2-seam circle change following a 2-seam fastball. Again, like I said, I don't like the closed circle. I think most pitchers are going to have a little more success with a little bit of an open circle, but what works best for the pitcher is going to be the results. So whatever the results are. Again, those caveats would be like a split finger pitcher. Some pitchers just have dominant splits. It's not probably even worth bringing this up to them. And if they have a split 3-fingered grip where they split their index and their ring finger and kind of their middle finger lays right in the middle, then, that's probably not going to be a big difference. It's hard to do a split 3-fingered 4-seam grip. For those of you guys that are really really know pitching well, you're not going to, usually typically the split 3-finger grip is done with a 2-seam type spin grip, but even then it can get a little sloppy with its spin because of the way the fingers are. So I wouldn't worry about it with those guys, but if you have a guy who's already throwing a circle like most pitchers, circle change, just match that spin up with the fastball spin. If they throw both fastballs, match it to the last fastball they threw. Practice that in your bullpens, all right? So that's something that you can practice and rep through, and I'm telling you that little difference, you're always looking. Again, you don't want to be good, you want to be optimal. And optimal is to match your changeup as best. You may have a good changeup, it may come out, your hand speed's good, everything looks good, your mechanics don't change, it tunnels really good, but the spin is different. Again, don't be satisfied with good, look to optimize. Like I said, you can go and look at the change-up video at 8020baseball.com. Hope you guys liked this episode. This one went a little longer because of the introduction to the new format. I'm going to do my best here to keep these between 25, 28, and 30 minutes with 3 parts to them like we discussed, talking about an underlying issue in baseball or a recommendation, a solid recommendation for all you coaches and players to go check out. Then the second part is going to be a specific coaching strategy or tip. Today we talked about timing transitions, and how to do that. And, if they don't get it done, use the bear crawl. Timing transition is huge and you can save your team a lot of time. It just it just kind of continues the tempo of an upbeat practice that you'd already want. And then the third part, we talked about position specific tip. In this case was pitchers matching their changeup spins to their fastballs. All right, guys, I hope you like this. This is Coach Bo. Definitely leave a good review. If you like this, leave a good review. I would appreciate that. Go check out the website, and I'll see you on episode 22. Take care. Bye.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Experience.
This is a really good team, and so you have to earn everything you have against them and take opportunities when they present themselves.
Take it to the field.